once you decide that you want to do something and you have your mind set on that, the universe will give you opportunities to do that. The beautiful thing about traveling is realizing that you are your biggest supporter and your biggest strength. There are just so many people saying like, you can't travel alone because you're a woman, or you're more in danger because you're a woman. And I don't think those should limit us at all. The world is not as scary as everybody thinks it is.
Hello everyone, welcome to Follow Minds. I am so happy to do the interview today with Laura. Laura, welcome to Follow Minds.
Thank you for having me here.
To start the interview, I already know you a bit, we know each other for quite some time, but please give us a small introduction about who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm Laura, I'm from South Africa, and I've been living in Tbilisi for 2 years, and I teach English online. And yeah, I've been traveling for a few years, and I've known Jan for, about 2 or 3 months, I think.
Yeah, even more, I guess. And yeah, we already talked a lot, so I want to talk with you about traveling, a bit about your journey, because I think it's really interesting. And I want to start with this. So you grew up in South Africa. How was it growing up in South Africa?
Yeah, South Africa is an amazing country, very diverse, and so many beautiful things, amazing people, nature, weather, food. Everything's great, in South Africa. Yeah.
So you grew there up, but now you live in Tbilisi, so obviously you started to travel, live in different countries. Why did you decide to leave South Africa?
Actually, life is very funny. I didn't have like a set plan to leave South Africa. A friend of mine was just traveling at the time in 2009, and she invited me to join her to travel. And so we both just resigned from our jobs, and I sold my car and I just decided to leave. And yeah, I've been traveling on and off for 14 years since then.
You're not only traveling because you lived in many different countries.
Right.
Let's go a bit through this. So in which country did you already live?
In terms of living, I lived in South Korea for 4 years, and I've been in Tbilisi for 2 years. And India was like a year. It was like kind of traveling and living at the same time. But I would say long term would be Korea and Tbilisi. Or Georgia.
I guess you learned a lot about yourself during these travels, because of course it brings you a lot of more perspectives to yourself. And what were like the biggest learnings you had during your travels and living in other countries?
Wow, so many. That's a hard question. I think the beautiful thing about traveling is realizing that you are your biggest supporter and your biggest strength, because you'll be traveling with people, and a lot of the time you'll be alone. And so in those moments, I think it just teaches you that, you can do anything. You can have a lot of resilience. And also it's very liberating to travel alone, and it's very freeing, like not having to, just be conditioned by the society. You just live your own life and you live on your own terms. So
there are many people who also see a lot of people traveling, love to travel, want to travel, but of course it's also they are a bit afraid, because you need to be somehow brave to leave your country to make new experiences. So for people in that state, what advice would you give to such young people?
Of course, traveling looks amazing when you see it on photographs and videos. You think you see people sitting by the beach with their laptops, which is now the current digital nomad dream. It's of course it's challenging, whether you're traveling short term or immigrating to a different country. It is very challenging. Traveling, of course, is very beautiful, but I think it's also very difficult, and those are the things that teach you the most about life. I think it's like anything. When you feel the fear, you should just go for it anyway. There's never going to be a right time to do it. And there's always going to be your own limiting beliefs and the limiting beliefs of other people that say like, don't go there, it's dangerous, or don't do that by yourself, like it's not safe. But the truth is that everybody has to go and experience it for themselves, get their own perspective, and just have their own experience of life, I guess.
Yes, you already said that traveling is not always that easy and that nice, like you see it on Instagram, you see it in the internet, where everything seems to be so perfect. So
Right.
in your journey, the countries you lived in, the traveling you did, what were some challenges you faced?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there are challenges of like language barriers,
Yes.
cultural misunderstandings. I think a lot of like women, for example, might be afraid to travel alone. Again, this is obviously something we should be aware of, but I don't think it should be limiting us. I think more and more women should be traveling and should be empowering other women to travel. The world is not as scary as everybody thinks it is. Of course, there will be good and bad people everywhere and good and bad experiences, but I think when you travel, you actually realize that, there are a lot of kind people and a lot of good people that will help you along the way.
I think
So
99% of people are kind, and often we speak about the 1%, but we should speak way more about this 1%. So as you mentioned, single women traveling often think it might be not a good idea, it could be dangerous,
Sure.
but you did it, and you said there must be some role models. So I think already you talking about, you are such a role model. And I want to talk a bit more about single women traveling. I already asked you for advices for people who generally are afraid of traveling, but let's dive a bit deeper into women traveling alone, because many people at that stage, they want to travel, but it's hard to start. So is there anything specifically you could give women as an advice who think about traveling?
I mean, I don't think, there are dangers for both men and women while traveling. I don't think it's a huge difference. I think when we travel anywhere, we should just be like aware of our surroundings. And I think also a lot of the time when you do travel alone, you're not really alone most of the time, because I feel like when you travel with friends, a lot of the time you're just together and you don't push yourself to connect with other people. Whereas when you're traveling alone, you meet a lot of other solo travelers. And so a lot of the journey is actually with other people. You might meet suddenly and then travel together for a month. So yeah, of course, when you're alone, you have to be just, like I said, aware of what's going on around you. And that's for anybody, actually, when they're traveling, both men and women, I think.
Yeah, I think that what you said shows what really happens if you travel alone, and it goes for men and for women. You meet people who are on the same journey, and you suddenly will feel how fast you can connect with people, and you just feel it's right.
Yeah.
So I know it because of mutual friends that you also had such experiences, and I think this can be the best stories.
Yeah, and I think just, there are just so many people saying like, you can't travel alone because you're a woman, or you're more in danger because you're a woman. And I don't think those should limit us at all, because as we said earlier, it's just, there should be more people like breaking those limiting beliefs or stereotypes, and like having your own experience and seeing that that's not necessarily true. Like you have to do it to realize like, just because we're women, like we can't do that. Like we still can do it and show everybody that it's possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
And looking back in your life, not only regarding to traveling, if you could go back to like your 18-year-old Laura, and you could give her an advice, what would that be?
So actually it's very funny because I think of this in reverse. So I think of it like if my 25-year-old self could give my 35-year-old self advice. I know that sounds weird, but...
No, it's not weird.
Yeah.
I like it. It's a question I also sometimes ask that way.
Yeah,
so I'm interested.
Yeah, it's very interesting because when I look at, like, when I started traveling, you know, like the goal was just to be free. And at that time, the idea was like, okay, let's travel, like let's not work and let's just like lay on the beach all day and go from city to city and not really have much responsibility. And of course, that's everybody's definition of freedom, I guess, was just like not work and travel. And at that time, that was just my friend and I, like our idea of freedom. So we did anything and everything possible to achieve that. So I think when I left South Africa, I left with about $3,000 and I traveled for a year and a half. And of course we were doing small jobs like in between. We were working on the beach, I was waitressing, we were doing hostessing in India and like lots of different jobs. And at that time, like we didn't care what we were doing or how we were gonna make money. Our why was just to be free.
Yes.
So whatever we did to achieve that was like the most important thing. And I feel like when you get older, you know, you get very much caught up in like what you're doing rather than why you're doing it. So when we look at like jobs, we think, oh, well, you know, maybe, and I think especially in the digital nomads, or just in life in general, but I see a lot of people like judging like different digital nomad jobs. So whether you want to do MLM or whether you want to be a professional poker player or whether you want to do, what is their website called now? OnlyFans, for example, right? I mean, like, I'm not saying there's any wrong or right way to do something. That is everybody's own personal choice. And I believe like live and let live is super important. And the thing is like if everyone's just trying to break away from the 9 to 5 or just away from society's norms, however they wish to achieve that is up to them. So I think like, sorry, just going back, I think that when we get older, we're so like worried about what our friends are going to think, what our family is going to think. Is this a suitable profession? But I think at the end of the day, like if you're trying to achieve something, nobody's going to see your vision except you. So if your friends are going to judge you or your family is going to judge you, I think it's just important to remember who you are, what's authentic to you, not what society deems as correct or incorrect, and then choose the path that is suitable for you and that matches the values or the goals that you want to reach in your life.
Yeah, that fits really well to what I try to do with this channel, encouraging people to find their why, and then to find their passion, find their why, and then live aligned to it, live with it. So that's really beautiful. And you mentioned something that I didn't know before, but I find it really interesting. Okay. So you said you left South Africa with $3,000. You went to India, did some jobs. And as you said before, it's easy to go back to what society expects from you. So I think at some point you must have been close to run out of money. And it could have been easy to decide, okay, I go back to South Africa. Now I had my wild phase, but now I'm back in normal life. Why didn't you do this? And how did you proceed?
Okay. Yeah, so this is something that I'm very passionate about, and I think it's like very, very interesting to have this perspective. So as I said, like when I started traveling, I just had a goal to be free, and it didn't matter how I achieved that. And I think this is important for like all of us to keep this message like as we go through life. Like once you decide that you want to do something and you have your mind set on that, the universe will give you opportunities to do that because you're stepping into your authenticity, you're stepping into what you want, and you, like you said, if your why is strong enough, it doesn't matter how. So, I mean, we got job. Of course, there were times when maybe money was running low, but we just kept working to fuel our travels, and yeah, like everything just presented itself the way that it should have been. And so I think like that's what I'm saying now, like as we, you know, as we get older, we start maybe becoming more judgmental of the things that we're doing, or maybe like more in our ego, or more worried about what other people think. But I think it's just making a decision of what you want to do and not wondering like, how is it going to happen for me? Because I feel like if you make that decision that this is what I want to do, the universe will show you the way to do it.
When you travel alone, it's like a gigantic opportunity to connect with people, and everybody we meet together, I meet, all people get so much energy from different people, as I do today talking to you. I mean, not only an interview, also prior to this and at other days. We just a couple of weeks ago, we met some people from Japan, amazing people. We went out, sat at the lake, we talked. We talked about different things, how people see life in Japan, how they see them in South Africa, in Germany, and in other countries. And that's the most beautiful thing about this. And I think with this interview today, with everything you said, people will be inspired to travel. So if you didn't travel so far, listen again to what Laura said, and I'm pretty sure you will try it. If you are a single woman, a single man, a couple, whatever, it will lighten up your life. So thank you so much for watching this interview, Laura.
Thank you so much for having me.
I really enjoyed talking to you. And yeah, for you guys, I hope you like this interview. I see you in the next video. See you next week.